Silence is not always peace. In Kansas, it serves as a defense. It is sheer terror. Some claim they are merely myths. Others refer to them as exaggerations. However, the dates are truthful, and the storylines do not either. What nobody wishes to acknowledge is that silence observes as well. Some locations have stories to tell. They are hidden in Kansas, possibly for a cause. Are you prepared? Then take a seat. Breathe deeply while holding your pillow snug, as you are now going to discover a marked mystery. The cemetery at Hellgate Stull, Kansas. Stull, a village so tiny that most people do not notice it when they drive by. A few strewn about houses, a fire church, and a graveyard on a desolate hill. That's all. However, the location is not as noisy as the legend. It is said that this is the gate to hell. Additionally, on the spring equinox twice a year, the devil walks on Halloween through it. For this reason, on October 31st, 1988, around 500 persons attended the graveyard under the dim light of a full moon, standing in the space between tombstones, murmuring, hoping, and waiting. A few stated that they had been hearing the tales for that the devil paid a visit to his malformed child's burial. Born from a witch in the area, the graveyard church contained a staircase that led directly into the shadowy realm. However, that evening, there was only broken and there was no flames or devil. Drink, inebriated laughter, and the noise of parched leaves breaking beneath perplexed footsteps. When the light comes up, the Douglas County Sheriff showed up. The tickets were distributed. They were escorted out. Additionally, for Stull citizens, it was just another scar, another invasion. However, it was not just that night. Cemetery Stull has been the focus of tales for decades. Stories about moving shadows where it should not get any light. Hands that seize you in the shadows. Whispering voices in unrecognizable languages. A few even discuss a picture that was taken in the 1970s. A hazy figure squatting among the grave markers. A young man with wolf-like features, bright eyes. Nobody has ever generated the image, but it has not prevented individuals from having faith. Others claim that Skull was the town's previous name, that it changed its name to conceal its association with evil magic, that this was the Devil's Choice location due to an old burial below the slope. No historical evidence of any of this, although it has never ruined a good tale. Actually, in 1974, a legend sparked fire when the University Daily, a student newspaper canon, wrote a piece on evil happenings in Stull. The composition was light-hearted, predicated on rumors and oral histories, but it showed a seed, and something developed from that seed, something outside the town's control. By dozens of people were intruding on Halloween. It was in the hundreds by the 1980s. More than 150 appeared in 1978. In 1988, the quantity of bottles tripled. Broken, tombstones vandalized, residents threatened, penalties were imposed, amounting to $1,000. Some were sentenced to prison. In 1996, at last, the roof of the church fell down. After several years, it was destroyed entirely, not because of fear, but annoyance, devastation, and fatigue. No more ghost stories, thrill seekers. They hoped, anyway. Today, at night, Stull Cemetery is locked. No, the fence is lined with trespassing signs. Regular patrols go around the neighborhood. The church has left. The procedures, should they ever existed, and are interred. However, the legend endures, as legends do not require facts. All they need are believers. And you people believe every year. Picture yourself standing there by yourself. At midnight, chilly wind that rips through your coat, the soft ground under your boots. The silence weighs too much, similar to the air is paying attention. Your flashlight looks the stones' names. Faded, forgotten, yet you feel a pull, a warning, a weight, a chest. You can tell yourself, it's only a tale, merely an urban legend. Then you hear it, though. The breath behind you is not yours. You pivot. Nothing. However, something has changed. The silence seems more intimate. The issue with Stull is not a bad or cursed thing. That's because it's unclear. It resides in the area between fiction and fear. The fear arrived instead of the devil, and it never went away. The reality is not horrifying due to what transpired there. It's frightening as you do not understand what did not. Thus, if you discover yourself at that cemetery's brink, do not listen for footsteps one day. Keep an ear out for quiet. Due to the fact that it stole by, there is never a void in stillness. November 14th, 1959. Kansas's Holcomb. Despite the cold, it was just another night. The secluded plains where houses are situated between mud and wheat oceans. Within the Clutter family's house is one of those slept. Nancy, Bonnie, Herbert, and Kenyon. A peaceful, orderly home, revered, admired, and naive. They never heard the two men coming. No moonlight, only determination and darkness. Silently, the intruders moved. Smith, Perry, along with Richard Hickok. Ex-offenders pursuing a lie. Rumor about a secret safe containing with money. A fellow's fostered prisoner. A lie that killed. That was not secure. Only 4 individuals are sleeping. One by one, they bound them. No screaming, uncertainty, and lack of resistance. Bonnie in her, Herbert in the basement bed, Kenyon close by, Nancy by herself waiting, confined, and in a chamber. Execution follows. They cut Herbert's throat before he was struck in the head. Bonnie came next, last and awake, followed by Kenyon and Nancy. Every bullet reverberated like a nail in the town's coffin that had never been locked its entrance. At dawn, NY's companion showed up to take her to church. She discovered the corpses, and nothing is the same since. Panic swept through like wildfire. Holcomb. The neighbors turned suspicious. Doors and guns were cleaned. Curtains drawn tight, locked. 4-6, the murderers disappeared after weeks. Then arrived the pause. The prisoner Floyd Wells, who confessed to having initiated it all. Smith as well as the Hickok were apprehended in Las Vegas. December 30th. In court, they show no regret. Smith gazed off into the distance. Hickok grinned. They were both hung on April 14th, 1965. Perhaps justice, but not peace. Soon after, Truman Caput showed up with Harper Lee. He conversed with neighbors, law enforcement, and the murderers themselves. In cold blood, his book made the crime forever. Each and every detail, every wound was dissected and reopened. For the narrative never ended. Holcomb, the remains of the Clutter house, which is held by others presently. However, the surrounding air feels heavy, as if nothing was ever completely taken out. Some claim that you can still hear a door creak, footsteps upstairs, when no, there is one. The locals do not talk about it. Largely, not because it's prohibited, because the pain is still there. This was not folklore. Time had not distorted it. It occurred precisely as described. Additionally, that's what exacerbates it. Because occasionally true evil does not lurk in underground passageways or legends or lakes. It occasionally knocks on your door and enters immediately. A few blood marks some sites, while quiet. In Kansas, however, even since not all creatures are remembered by water, stay hidden in the shadows. Some people wait directly below the exterior. Let's investigate further. The Kansas River Monster is this. It was an intense summer day in 1978 in the vicinity of Clinton State Park. The type of heat clinging to your body. The lake had a warm, stagnant dirt smell. Water. Teenagers swam in close proximity. The beach, giggling, splashing, and not knowing that the surrounding water had increased murky. After that, one of them, 16 years old, cried out. Something touched his leg. Not a fish, not a plant. Something hefty, thick, and scaled. It traveled in tandem with force. Pale, he ran out of the water, was trembling, breathing heavily. He claimed it was not typical. The others, they all laughed, but none returned inside. No one in the area laughed. All they did was nod. Someone suggested it must have been Clinty. The half-gator, half-catfish, half-lake monster. The story of the monster in the Kansas River has reverberated over decades. A beast that size of a vehicle hiding deep within lakes and rivers. Fishermen converse. Divers murmur. Swimmers claim to have sensed it. Observing. During the 1980s, divers examining the Wilson Lake Dam, it was stated to observe enormous forms traveling close to the bottom. Too large, Too quick. A single diver claimed it was covered in slime and appeared human. Having teeth. Darker tales are told by others. One of the boys ducked beneath. A missing dog mid-swim. An unverified water-skiing experience 1985 attack that was covered by a local newspaper and never brought up again. The animal at Clinton Lake. Clinty is referred to as an impossible hybrid. Broad crocodilian back, soulless, and catfish jaw eyes, but it is not a novel concept. In 1883, according to Mark Twain, catfish weigh 200 pounds or more in the Mississippi, most likely inflated, yet convincing enough to stick. A Kansas newspaper published a story in 1902, tale of a giant impaling a farmer catfish. Fiction, but it did catch on. Around 1914, a picture of a hideous. The fish weighed 800 pounds. It was not real. However, it appeared plausible enough to be believed. When the construction of hydroelectric dams in the stories took off in the 1930s, the more profound, the darker the water got, the imagination developed. Rumors in the 1970s spread of a baby discovered within a stomach of a catfish. No infant was present. Report. However, the tale endures, recounted in fishermen leaning over in hushed tones railings in the evening. Additionally, the science does not assist. Divers verify big 60 to 70 pounds, possibly 90 pounds, but nothing that has scales or claws like armor, nothing that appears to have eyes conscious, no official documents, no encrypted hunts without any scientific backing. However, there is still worry since it does not take proof that you are being observed. Imagine this. In Clinton Lake, you're waist deep at sunset. It's too still in the water. Everyone, a ripple is similar to a breath. Something grazes your leg. You become motionless. You look down. Nothing. However, you remain still because something did not feel right. Clinty is hardly discussed by locals because they think. They do not communicate because they do not have to. It's enough to be afraid. The monster from the Kansas River might not appear in scholarly works, but it exists and looks down at the lake, suddenly quiet surrounding campfires, among children who they will not go below their knees. The facts do not matter. It was not. It's concerning what the river may yet be hiding, and what could be observing a cat. Now, due to the fact that the water is constantly deeper than it appears, and occasionally it glances back, there are certain monsters who haunt the water. Some people never get off the ground. However, in some locations, they have what we interred, and occasionally such things attempt to return. The subterranean city of Ellenwood. On a calm western day, the sun was sinking. Town. However, beneath the dusty streets, something concealed from the chilly wind others waited. The tunnels, a network of underground passageways constructed during the Santa Fe trail boom. Stores, taverns, barbers, and a hidden city below the prairie. In one of those tunnels, as well, a man lay broken beneath the Wolf Hotel. Bubba was his name. No last name. Nobody recalls it. The only thing about his body was discovered in the boiler, beaten and shackled space. His chest was bloody and his face crushed. It was not intended for him to be in town at night since Ellenwood was a town at dusk. Nobody was taken into custody. No, they charged one. A brief remark in the stillness and the death register. Today, the same tunnels are traversed by tourists. They listen to the tale. However, some claim that the air grief still weighs heavily down there. Never went away. Ellenwood was constructed by 1870, saw the arrival of German immigrants. Its subterranean area that linked the heart of the town. A shop for harnesses, dry goods, steam bath beneath a barbershop and a bank shops, hidden bars under shops, and the 1894 built Wolf Hotel, the center of everything. Its basement remains contains echoes. The tunnels are now accessible to the general population. Into the past, the brochures. Ghost tours lasting 3 hours, all EVP sessions and night investigations. However, the ghosts are not the true hauntings. They are the facts. Neil Gertrude. She killed while praying on his knees when a fire confined her to a gate. Her tone. They claim that it is recorded, whispering and begging, particularly in the former barbershop. Millet, Bernard, a traveling salesman who committed suicide the dining room of the Wolf Hotel. The ghost hunters claim to have heard someone say, "Pull the trigger." Bubba comes next. His presence is unique. The atmosphere expands. The boiler room is colder. Some people hear the clinking of metal. Others touch their chest. Titan. Guides describe him with respect, but no words can take away the aggression. Some tourists say they have seen a Tom, a faceless cowboy, or a little girl Drake, the proprietor of the former harness shop, floating in the dark. Each name has a document. Each death leaves a mark on history. This is not a work of fiction. I took those walks. Tunnels. My flashlight hardly made it through. The shadows. The scent of moist stone filled the air and iron that has corroded. My breath came out more loudly more than it ought to. In the barber shop, something was observed. I was unable to view it. However, I was aware. The cold in the boiler room was not caused by temperature. It was weight. It is not necessary to believe in ghosts in order to feel like you are being watched down there. Ellenwood does not conceal these tales. It places them in on exhibit. However, pay attention to the instructions. If you listen long enough, you will hear it in their voice. They would prefer not to recall. These legends do not haunt tunnels. Their past haunts them. Bubba's death was not a myth from the city. It was for decades. Racial violence was eradicated. There was no rumor about Gertrude's final moments. Behind a locked fence were screaming. The story of Bernard's sorrow was not one of terror. It was the final breath of a man. Thus, yes, you'll hear odd sounds. Indeed, your camera may malfunction. However, what scares you the most about all of this? Occurred. History also does not die easily. Pay attention as you move down those hallways for the ancient wood brook, the sound of shoes you do not own, the breath you did not take, and consider the possibility that is the past still with us. The plains search bog. In Kansas, the wind never stops. Grasslands. It murmurs, hums, and yells. Stuff you were not supposed to hear. On a night in 1875, a lone rider no moon, simply opened south of Topeka Prairie and the sound of parched grass beneath hoofbeats. His horse's ears froze. The man felt it, his muscles shaking, his head up. Additionally, something strange, not the cold, but the fact that the wind was not only it was speaking and blowing. He said was unable to comprehend, but they filled him fearfully. Upon arriving in town, he was silent, trembling, white as bone. The Cancer tribe's elders examined each other, whispering a single word. Seekbug, the wind's spirit. Not as something older, a ghost rather than a beast. The Osage tribe's root in Cancer pornography. The wind is more than just weather in our land. It is a god, a force, or being. Cancer, the state's namesake, revere the four winds as gods. According to Osage, the wind opened the waters to creation of the earth. The pornographic the evening star is the boss of the west wind. Names hold great significance. Muju Kiwis for the Waboon to the east and the Cherokee to the west mention an elder wind that governs them all. However, look for bog. It is not found in any written documentation, although it's muttered since a name is unnecessary for a sensation in your bones. Consider yourself in the midst of those plains with no hills, trees, or cover only the grass, the sky, and the wind pushing. It wraps around when you breathe. It shifts course without you warning. It can also speak at times. Travelers reported pressure and whispers in their cranium, getting dragged away from the trail by invisible hands. They declared a cellar could be torn from below by the wind. Turn an animal inside out or house. It noticed you, not because it disliked you. Moreover, once it spots you, it stops forget. Historical narratives describe men who modified after returning from solo passages, far away, shook, or not at all. Seekbog has no face. It is faceless. Leave traces. It is not a living thing. It's the wind, so you can either shoot or chase. When it becomes still, it screams. When no one is around, the sound behind you're there, the strain on your back as you attempt to proceed and something advises against it. It might not be a ghost. Perhaps it's the terrain itself. The limitless, painful emptiness. The quiet that turns into a sound. Indigenous tales were passed down via voice rather than pen. Were not intended to be authored, shared only, and safeguarded when it is secure. The search bog could be perhaps it's not a spirit, or it's one of those at all. Perhaps it's simply the way things work out. When mental anguish results from being alone, yet when the grass is pressed down by the sky, closes in as every angle is examined the same, and the wind will continue to blow. You'll stop walking. You'll comprehend. You sense something, so you turn slowly. Nothing is there behind you, but you'll recognize the wind when you hear it. Is not by themselves. The mythology, the submerged object of a sinkhole. Monsters should not exist in Kansas. But in 1952 summer, something in the water close to Inman stirred. Something nobody knew what it was. Nobody was able to capture it. And even now, something that has not been explained. Give it the name Sinkhole Sam. If it resides in what the locals refer to as the large sinkhole, a water body that is round, it is roughly 50 feet broad, dark, and motionless. Amidst the wheat fields, a peaceful, non-draining basin, a scar in the territory that never recovered, and perhaps never will. The tale started with two young men, teenagers and locals trying to pass the time with a .22 rifle and a rowboat. They observed something thick, lengthy, and dark rises at 15 feet or more of it, slipping just below too large for a snake, the surface for a log. It was smooth. It moved with one of them fired twice with intent. The monster vanished without flinching. Word swiftly spread, and older people began speaking. Not aloud, not on tape, but near gas stations and coffee shops. They muttered about a being that had consistently present. Fupin gurgle, one partly kidding, partly serious, the man called it recalling. A fictitious term for something quite realistic, or perhaps something made real out of terror. An article appeared in the local paper. Headlines that described the monster in the sinkhole muddled reality and ridicule. No pictures, no simply echoes, no proof, yet that summer, the swimming was discontinued. The reputation of sinkhole was altered. It was known it changed from being a curiosity to a warning. The creature reportedly possessed the body of a serpent, a catfish skin, and the descriptions of eyes of nothing earthly different. Some claimed it slithered, while others claimed that it rolled. But the sensation was constant, a presence observing from underneath, and the water remained. Nevertheless, biologists rejected it. An animal like that may live in a sinkhole that shallow. Catfish do not grow, they said. That large. Attributed it to imagination, darkness, or frenzy. But science never local stepped in that water, and not everyone came back the same. In 1965, while hunting frogs nearby, the dog disappeared. The brink. A man claimed to have seen his leg had something curling around it as he waited inside. According to his wife, he yelled like a kid, but he never mentioned once more. A woman who lives in Inman even in her 80s, she still will not go close to it sees you, she says, referring to the ocean. Remembers, no one has ever been apprehended. Sam, you're a sinkhole, not in traps. The observations decreased following the 70s, yet the uneasiness persisted. Sinkhole still lies near west of Inman, brush-fenced and unnoticed by GPS. It's simply avoided, it's not prohibited. Even wise, picture yourself standing there. Sun high, midday, cicadas, and a lone buzzing, but there is not enough movement in the water. You hear a splash, but the air is too thick. There is simply no wind or bird. Ripple, slow, wide, revolving back. The next fragrance is that of age, not rot. Something ancient has changed, such as something that simply lost the ability to die thought about you. You tell yourself, nothing. It's only water. However, you get out of there fast because Sinkhole Sam might not exist. Perhaps it is a fiction. Childhood fear and misidentification solidified into legend. But Kansas has consistently buried more than wheat. The earth remembers sometimes. According to some others claim it was a monster, little more than a catfish. But nobody days swim thereafter, not even now, due to the fact that even if there is nothing and the fear of that water is genuine. Sometimes that's all that's required. Kansas whispers, places speak, and those who ever listens will always remember what they heard. If any of these tales sparked and share a question, a chill, or memory, this curiosity is not unique to us. Who knows? Your remark could lead to the next enigma awaits us.